Welcome to Tech Brothers. In this video, we're going to learn how to verify or validate cluster configuration. In this demo, we'll be learning validating cluster by running all the tests against the cluster. Number two, validating cluster running specific tests, because you can run either all the tests or you can choose some tests to run against your cluster. Scenario up here is that why you wanted to validate your cluster, because number one, added or deleted some resources from the cluster. You do want it to validate cluster after that, because there might be some dependency that your cluster might not be in good shape after you added or deleted some resources from the cluster, and that's the big picture. Number two, added a new node or disk. Let's say that you decided to add another node or a disk to your existing cluster. You would like to validate that node or a disk against that cluster. So that is one good scenario that you would like to run the validation of your cluster. Number three, if you have changed some network settings, it is mandatory to validate your cluster and make sure your cluster is in good shape. And let's go ahead and let me show you that how you validate and run all the tests or specific tests in your cluster. So here's my node 2. I have two node cluster, TBS node 2, Tech Brothers node 2, and this is my cluster name, TBS 2012 cluster. I'm going to expand that. I'm going to quickly show you what I have. I have roles right here, two SQL Server instances running. One is running on node 1 and other is running on node 2. I have MSDTC services running on cluster node 2. Node, I have two node cluster, as I mentioned, node 1, node 2. If you go to storage and look at the disk, I have 8 disks, 3 for SQL Server related, and other is Quorum and MSDTC, and this is for other SQL Server instance, as you can see, SQL UAT, and this is SQL Prod. These are two SQL Server instances. Networks, I have two networks. One is private and other is external. Private is also known as Heartbeat, and this is external network and is responsible for communication between your cluster environment and your organizational network. So let's go ahead and learn how to validate cluster configuration. If you click on cluster name right here, you on the right side in action pane right here, click validate cluster, and this will open a validation configuration wizard. So let's click next. Now right here, what I was explaining, that if you wanted to run all the tests, that is recommended, especially if you just created your cluster from the scratch. You would like to run all the tests, and that is recommended. Or you can click on run only test that I select. If you click on run only test that you select, click next, and this is your options. These are your options: cluster configuration, inventory, network, storage, system configuration. So inventory, if you take a look, you will see that it has storage and system. You can also expand that and take a look what kind of test is going to run against your system. So let's go and take a network right here. These are the tests that is going to run against your network. Let's say that you have changed some network settings and all you wanted to do is basically do the network. You can uncheck all this and just check the network. Let's say that you have added or removed some of the storage from your network. You can go ahead and basically just run on the storage list of the disks right here. This is what it's gonna run against. So let me go back. In this demo, we're going to go ahead and run all the tests that's recommended. It depends on how many resources are there. In my case, it's gonna take about 5 to 10 minutes, maybe 5 minutes to validate all the cluster, and then it's going to go ahead and give us the report, the validation report. And after the validation is has ran successfully, it's going to give us all the warnings or errors. Keep in mind that if you see any critical warnings or errors, you need to take care of that in order to have your cluster in good shape. So let's go ahead and click on run all tests, click next, and this is the summary. You are ready to start validation. So this is the summary. It'll tell you that inventory, storage, system configuration, and click next. Now it started validating. So it's gonna take a little bit time. It will show you any report that basically is a problem for you in this cluster, and you need to take a look at the report. I'm going to go ahead and pause the video. Once the validation is completed, we'll take a look on the validation report. Report is ready for us to review. The first sign up here is red X. That is not a good news. So you can look at the report right now by clicking view report, or you can later on come back and look at the view report validation. So let's go ahead and take a look on our report. As you can see that cluster configuration has some failure. You can click on cluster configuration right here, as it shows right here results, what has exactly failed. Up here in my case is list cluster volumes. Let's click on that and it will say that failed to obtain the partition information for cluster disk 1. So the cluster disk 1 has an issue. Some of the issues that I have created intentionally, just so that you know that it would basically show some errors and warnings. I didn't want to show you that it has all really good configuration and nothing is wrong with my cluster, because this is more realistic if there is any problem with your cluster. So you need to basically go and look into your cluster report and look into your disk 1, that what exactly is the issue with disk 1. So it shows you right here that there are issues with disk 1, and right here is also the workflow, that how it goes, SQL Server agent and SQL Server prod and all that disk 3 right here, disk 1, all the disks has some sort of issues. So you need to basically take a look on that perspective of the disk. So next up here is the warning. Let's take a look on the warning. Validate resource status. It says the resource is marked with the state of failed instead of online. The failed state indicates that resource had a problem either coming online or had a failure while it was online. So I just intentionally created all this just to show you basically that this kind of issues that you can run into, and you need to take care of these issues. So that's it basically for this demo. We went ahead and we ran all the tests against storage, inventory, system settings, and I also showed you that you can run on specific tests and some of the scenarios we discussed, that why we need to run the validation of cluster. And I hope this video helped.